Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Tuesday evening to you all. Hope you guys are doing well out there, feeling fantastic, and certainly have had yourselves a great day and a great start to your week. I got you a pretty big update this evening, talking about multiple things, multiple topics. The first topic is going to be this big time ridging setting up over portions of the Southwest. This will also affect areas of the South Central U.S. where it's already very hot. It's already been very hot over the last couple of days. It's hot today and will continue to be even hotter over the next several days. We'll talk about how hot potentially in this video. We'll also break down the severe weather threat that will be with us for the foreseeable future as basically a belt of winds aloft that's going to support forcing for thunderstorms will set up over portions of the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, the upper Midwest, maybe even all the way into the Great Lakes region as far south as maybe the Southeast, Mid-South regions. So we'll talk about that, but we'll just focus in on what will happen between now and the next couple of days. And then stay tuned towards the end of the video. We'll give you a little bit of an update on the tropics. Not super detailed because there's not really anything to get really detailed about, but we'll talk a little bit about sea surface temperatures, how hot they are, ridiculously hot. I mean, 90-degree ocean water out there. It feels like a bathtub in the Gulf of Mexico. We'll talk about how warm in this video. We even talk about a little bit of a signal showing up on some of the models for maybe some tropical development within the next 10 days or so. And then we'll even talk about how much rain has Vermont seen and look at the latest rainfall totals that's been submitted per actual storm spotters and what's actually fell in Vermont. So if you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. And I just want to say thanks for everybody responding by joining the channel. You know, I had a goal of to hit 40 members by the end of the summer. It sure enough looks like I'm going to do it. I have 36 members right now, something like that. So thank y'all. Thank y'all. It feels like just about a month ago, I believe I was just 26, 27. So 10 members, 10 members in a month span is huge. So thank y'all for supporting me in that way. But also just thank you for people who are just subscribers, who just comment daily or part of the family. I mean, you guys are part of it too. So just thank you. I don't want to make y'all feel secluded or anything like that. You guys are absolutely included. But certainly thank you for the people who show their unconditional support by supporting me monthly by joining the channel. It means the world. If you folks have anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below so I can pray over it. Let's get rolling here. Having issues with my mouse this evening. It's not cooperating well, so if you see me moving it around like that, it's because I'm just trying to wake her up over here. But we got a lot of heat advisories, a lot of heat alerts, excessive heat warnings in the dark pink. It's very hot already. Excessive heat watches in California, areas in Nevada. This lighter pink or more doled out pink is severe thunderstorm watches, so it's about to go downhill. There's already severe thunderstorm warnings in eastern Montana. We talked about that possibility in this morning's video. Heat advisories now extend all the way well up into Kansas. In fact, even a few counties north of Kansas City have heat advisories. I think tomorrow is going to be a very hot day up here. Excessive heat warnings even for Tulsa. So the heat is on again. You guys have been dealing with it all summer. And sure enough, you're going to have to keep dealing with it for the foreseeable future as this flex of the southeast, I'm sorry, not the southeast ridge, but ridging over the southwest, so southwest ridge, is really, really going to affect the heat in the worst way possible. It's going to be downright unbearable out here. Some areas will get over 120 degrees in certain areas of the desert southwest. So heat is on. Heat advisory still up for the southern areas of Florida, and even some excessive heat watches up for the Memphis region. So let's talk about what's going to happen. So let's start this off by around this time tomorrow. You see these dark reds, burgundy colors. That is where you have basically the more intense ridging in place. Okay, so the ridging is right over the southwest portions of the south central U.S., and you even have a bit of ridging all the way into the southeast. But you look up here in these cooler colors, that's troughing. So think of ridging with the warmer colors, troughing with the cooler colors, like the yellows, the greens, things like that. So we'll move this in time. Watch how this moves around. We even have some 600 show up here, okay? And that is a very strong ridge in this region. You'll see some purple show up or some very dark purple show up here in a second. That is indicating very strong ridging in place. And we keep this very strong ridging of high pressure. We keep this going in motion here. We get into Thursday morning. This ridge is still over the southwest. It continues to flex and is basically dominating the entire southwest. Even as we get into Friday, we get into Saturday, we get into Sunday, and it even intensifies as we get into the later part of this weekend, where I think the heat will be the most intense as we get into this weekend. I mean, look at this purple showing up. This is a massive, well-entrenched ridge that is going to bring just dangerously hot temperatures in this region. What I want you guys to know is the desert southwest is already hot. For this time of the year, okay? It's already very hot out there. Even on an average day in the summer, the temperatures are well over 100 degrees in Phoenix. So when you have well above average temperatures in areas like Phoenix, Death Valley, that means your temperatures are getting like well above 110, 120 degrees in these areas, okay? It is a dry heat, but I mean 120 degrees is 120 degrees, okay? That is scorching hot. You notice there's a little bit of troughing out east, but that doesn't mean you're not going to get hot temperatures. We got to see how this ridge flexes eastward. But in a nutshell, you see this area right here. That is where your hot temperatures is going to be centered. And this is also affecting Texas, the south central U.S. You got to really work your way, I would say, more east, northeast, before you really get out of the influence of these well above average temperatures. And speaking of well above average temperatures, this is temperatures compared to average in Celsius. But in general, you'll see how the warmer colors show up on the western U.S. And we keep this in motion here, and we'll get into this weekend. This is for Saturday. Above average temperatures continuing for Arizona, areas of New Mexico, to California, Nevada, up the western coastline. Below average temperatures right in the middle of the country, but this ridge begins to really flex. And then this is when the heat can become dangerous as we get into the later part of this weekend, where you'll get well above average temperatures setting up, 8 to 12 degrees Celsius above average, which is pretty high, guys, pretty well below average in this region. We keep this going, and this really just dominates the entire western U.S. Several degrees, 10, 15, 20 degrees above average out here, even hotter than that in certain regions. So the heat is really on. It's going to flex in this region. And, by the time we get 10 days out, the entire lower 48 might be above average temperature-wise. So what does that mean temperature-wise? Well, we start out in the southwest, and this is for tomorrow. Areas like Phoenix getting up to 110 degrees, 113 degrees forecast in areas like Phoenix for Thursday. Death Valley well into the 110s, if that makes any sense, well into 115, 120 degrees, even hotter in some of the isolated desert areas. I mean, you see this region right here. That is temperatures right here in the deserts of California, Death Valley, reaching well above 120, 125, maybe 130 degrees. We could get record-breaking territory. Look how hot it's even getting in Utah, guys. Las Vegas is potentially going to get well above 110 degrees, 115 degrees, maybe all the way to 120 degrees. I mean, look, forecasted high for Saturday for the National Weather Service, going for around 118, 119, 120 degrees in Las Vegas. Phoenix, very hot. I would say the hottest weather is right in this region, right into here. And then you get into Sunday. It's the same deal, very hot. Look at the valleys of California, well over 105, 110 degrees. Very, very hot, miserable conditions. I mean, this ridging is even affecting areas of southern Idaho where you're getting over 100 degrees. And you continue. I mean, you get into next Monday, same deal. And then you might get a little bit of a cool down as we get into next week. But this is actually getting back into what it is right now. But this only goes out to about Monday, and the heat is still flexing really terribly. The south central U.S., Dallas-Fort Worth, well over 100 again tomorrow. Amarillo, same thing. Basically, the only areas that won't get over 100 in Texas is the extreme eastern areas of the state. But you're not going to be any better, because the further east you work in Texas, the more moisture increases in the atmosphere. So you have to deal with a higher heat index level. But 100 degrees widespread in Kansas tomorrow, Missouri, Little Rock, well into the upper 90s. You get into Thursday, I think this ridge gets beat down a little bit into this region. So you'll deal with another hot day in like Kansas, and definitely Oklahoma, and definitely Texas for Thursday. This is Thursday high temperatures. Getting to Friday, some cooler temperatures begin to sink a little bit further south. Still very hot in Texas, though. But, I would say for Texas, this isn't going to be quite as bad for you as your neighbors a couple states to your west. This is basically what you have been seeing. I would say for Texas, the heat will be really, really bad tomorrow. Be pretty miserable tomorrow, well over 100 degrees. It'll be well over 100 degrees by the time you get to lunchtime in Texas tomorrow. So go on to prepare for the intense heat. Well over 100 degrees for the foreseeable future in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. It's just an unbearable summer heat-wise. So we look at the severe weather threat. We have basically a belt of favorable winds of loft setting up over areas basically between this ridging of high pressure and basically a cyclone, basically an area of low pressure up here in Canada. And between this, you have this belt of favorable forcing for thunderstorm development, kind of through this region right into here, even potentially blasting even further deeper into areas of Missouri. This eventually will maybe make its way into this region, moving across areas of the Ohio Valley, Mid-South, Kentucky. So areas like Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio could be dealing with another spell of a few days of some intense storms. So we got to watch out for this, even into Tennessee. So this is the setup. You can see how the water vapor is moving in. The higher water vapor is moving in from the west to the east in that general direction. So we get this off and we continue to move. And we look at the 500 millibar winds right here. You got a mid-level jet pushing 40, 50 knots in this region. But if you can tell, you keep this in motion, this is really setting up over this entire region. So that tells me there's going to be pieces of energy shooting through here, what we call mesoscale convective systems, basically lines of intense thunderstorms that could be severe, produce damaging winds, even a tornado threat, hail threat, wind-driven hail. And so as we get into Thursday, this continues. A belt of favorable kinematics, which is going to support forcing for storms in this entire Midwest area, the northern Mississippi Valley, maybe the northern Great Plains, into the upper Midwest, into the Ohio Valley. And this will continue. This will eventually, and you'll even get support for storms into the Northeast. We get a little bit later this week into the weekend, and you get a favorable flow that supports storms even into the Mid-Atlantic, the Northeast. But certainly some support here for continuous rounds of severe weather across this area of the country. And even down here, I think we watch for widespread storms as we get into Friday, maybe even to the Saturday, into areas of maybe as far south as the Mississippi Delta, the Mid-South regions. Tennessee, Arkansas could definitely get into some storms down here. And I think this continues, guys. I think this thing locks in, this little low up here, and really locks in, forcing for rounds of severe storms. I think that this is going to be a pattern that's going to set up from the northern plains all the way through the Ohio Valley, which obviously includes the Midwest. I think this is going to be a pattern entrenched for the next several days into this region. I mean, we even get into late weekend next week, and we continue to have a favorable flow that supports just episodes, rounds after rounds of severe weather. So I think, if you live in this entire region, basically right into here, I would say that you're going to be dealing with just round after round of storms. Now, this is going to pivot a little bit further south some, probably more so in Arkansas, but this is going to be the corridor that I think you're going to be having to deal with round after round of storms, I think, for the foreseeable future. Whether they're coming in the morning, the afternoon, the evening, overnight, that's a big question that we're going to have to figure out as we get closer to each day. But speaking of tomorrow, we have a pretty broad slight risk, which basically includes areas of eastern Nebraska, the southeast corner of the eastern areas of Kansas, southeast corner of Nebraska, southern Iowa, all of Missouri, almost all of Illinois, portions of western Indiana, western Kentucky. You look at the tornado threat with this, you have a 2% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in any given location. Okay, so you can't ignore this. Kansas City, Peoria, Springfield, St. Louis, down to Springfield. Tornado threat, damaging winds. Okay, not only do you have the 15% risk of winds exceeding 50 knots or higher, that's 55 to 60 miles per hour, you also have a hatched risk, which includes Kansas City through Columbia, Missouri, all the way to St. Louis. So there's a 10% risk in this black outline region, and this will change as we wake up in tomorrow, I promise you. something will change. I would not be surprised if we wake up to an enhanced risk, one bit. But that's a 10% risk of significant winds, which is 65 knots or higher. That's 70 to 75, 80 mile per hour winds, guys. So big deal. Hail threat. I think we have to watch out for some supercells that could get going here in eastern Kansas, maybe even areas of southeast Nebraska that could make its way across the Kansas City area. So not only in Kansas City, for example, do you have a 15% risk of hail, you also have that 10% risk of significant hail, which is hail that exceeds 2-inch in diameter or larger. So let's go on and break this down more broad take at this. We'll start off tomorrow. This is what the HRRR model was saying. We're going to have storms in Iowa. Southern central Iowa looks like we'll have a complex of storms making its way through the state. This continues to surge through Illinois as we make our way into the morning hours. This could be further north. This could be further south. It's a big question. What does the convection do from the overnight hours that leads into tomorrow morning? But dealing with a lot of heavy rain, some storm activity blasting through the northern half of Illinois. This could affect areas of southern Michigan, northern Indiana as you make your way into the afternoon hours. And, heads up if you're in southern Michigan, these could be severe storms tomorrow afternoon, northern Indiana, all the way into Detroit. We have to watch how these storms behave. But this storms are continuing and making their way all the way to the northeast. But then your eyes focus on this. Look at these intense storms developing in eastern Kansas. Okay, watch out Kansas City. You got 2 or 3 intense supercells developing. These could drop significant hail, very large hail in these areas. I mean, look at this supercell up here in southern areas of Wisconsin. And then in between Wisconsin and these cells I just mentioned in Kansas and Missouri, you got scattered convection in Iowa, northern Missouri, even southern and southeast sections of Minnesota. And you keep this rolling here, this could develop into one of those mesoscale convective systems, one of those intense lines of storms, potentially somewhere in Missouri. It very well could. And then you make your way into the overnight hours. It's around 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. You could have some very bad storms making its way through St. Louis, southwest sections of Illinois, even some storms back here further in western Missouri, eastern Kansas. But I can tell you, models are going to struggle with this. And then we wake up Thursday morning, and we'll do it all again, but it may be a little bit further east. Could be waking up to some nasty storms, southern Thursday morning, southern Missouri, Boot Hill, Missouri, southern Indiana, etc. Who knows? We got to figure that out. So a little bit closer look at this. We'll go through the HRRR model one more time. And this is the big high threat area right here tomorrow. Look at these little individual supercells right outside of Kansas City, guys. Okay? This is around 7, 8, 9 p.m. Could have an intense hailstorm. You could. It's a big question. Okay? And then you keep this going. We get into the well after midnight time frame. Could be dealing with some intense storms here in Missouri. But trying to figure out who's going to see it, it's a tough one. Okay, look at the FV3 model for this. What does this look like? So let's go all the way to Wednesday morning. Kind of the same deal, right? It likes this convection in Illinois tomorrow morning. So they agree with that. But what happens behind this? Well, something totally different from the FV3 model. Okay, we get to 6, 7 p.m. and look at these intense storms in the Boot Hill, Missouri, southern Illinois, southern extreme southwest areas of Indiana like Evansville, Paducah, Kentucky, western Kentucky. Okay, the HRRR model for 7, 8 p.m. tomorrow does not show this convection. So there's already a big disagreement here between 2 different models. And this is only 2 different models. This is probably going to be a capped environment over here. So I can tell you I wouldn't be surprised if no supercells fire up in eastern Kansas, western Missouri. But if they do, they're going to produce an all hazards type event. But I can tell you the FV3 model likes the idea of a big time cluster of storms that could be producing damaging winds tomorrow evening into this region right into here. And if this materializes, it could bring some flooding rains in this region because if you start it off, it starts off tomorrow evening, it lasts throughout the overnight hours, and you're dealing with a lot of rain in northern Arkansas, southern Missouri as you're waking up tomorrow morning. So, it really doesn't have any more storms up here in Iowa, northern Missouri. This model doesn't. So it's tough to figure out. The HRRR model does end up being correct. It does symbolize that tornado threat with those supercells that do have a chance to form here in and around the Kansas City area. If any storms do get discrete, get alone, they have that chance. And then it shows some rotation in these storms, even a little bit around the Kansas City area, even a little signal up here in northern Illinois. So we need to watch out for this, guys. It's a tricky forecast, and we'll certainly go back over it tomorrow morning for tomorrow's forecast. Day 3, all you get is a massive, broad marginal risk that extends from the high plains all the way up to New England, all the way down to Columbia, South Carolina. So that tells you that their confidence is low on who could see the most intense storms. But I can tell you there will be some tweaking of this. There will be a slight risk issued for this day. They're just probably trying to figure out where they should put it. So right now, for Thursday, just a massive marginal risk. And then going from Friday onward, from day 4 to day 8, predictability too low. But it does mention in the discussion that you're basically going to have a pattern that's going to pretty much remain intact in this entire region that I just mentioned, and the Plains, Mississippi Valley, Ohio Valley, the Midwest regions, where you're just going to have daily rounds of severe storms. And some days could be more intense than others. So that's a severe weather update. Let's talk about the tropics. Check this out. In Johnson Key, Florida, they registered a sea surface temperature of 97 degrees Fahrenheit. I'll be honest, I don't know how it gets that hot because the air temperature doesn't get that hot down here. So the waters are definitely holding in a lot of heat, but there's nothing comfortable about swimming in that. It's ridiculous. 97 degree temperatures in the ocean. It's just wild. So, I laugh, but it's not nothing to laugh about. What I worry about as we go to the next one, okay, this is sea surface. I know it's kind of blurry on the screen. This is sea surface temperatures in Celsius in the Gulf of Mexico. The Gulf of Mexico is one of the warmest bodies of water this time of the year. The Mediterranean Sea gets quite warm also, but the Gulf of Mexico is one of the hottest bodies of water on Earth. One of them. But if you look right here in these areas, like in the purple, that's temperatures, a widespread, that's 32 degrees Celsius, which is about 89, 90 degrees Fahrenheit. That is temperatures widespread in the low 90s, sea surface temperature wise. And even out here in the middle, right, you got 31, 32 degrees Celsius. That's like, 86 to 90 degrees Fahrenheit. And even in the reds, it's very hot, mid to upper 80s. It's basically anywhere from the mid 80s to the low to mid 90s as far as the sea surface temperatures out here. So what I'm basically trying to say is we have absolute rocket jet fuel for anything tropical to get in here. We're going to get rapid intensification. Of course, not everything drives off sea surface temperatures, but this is worrisome because we all know that once we get into August, September, we don't want anything in the Gulf of Mexico, even October. Okay, so this is something to keep an eye on. If we look at as far as are we seeing anything tropical, there is a signal about 10 days out for a tropical wave to emerge off North Africa. But that's 10 days out. There's a little bit of a signal in the European ensemble showing multiple members showing something. So this is starting to get into the later portion of July. We're inching and flirting a little bit closer to August at this point, which is really when hurricane season begins to ramp up. So we need to pay attention to this, but nothing to be concerned about for now. One last thing I'll show you is this is the current totals from, I believe, about 30 minutes ago in Vermont. Vermont was obviously the highest hit state, but I can tell you, I thought I would see higher totals than this, but regardless of the higher totals verified or not, the damage is done. And it did the damage. Some awful footage out of this region. Towns flooded, communities flooded. But anywhere from these mountainous towns and mountainous regions, anywhere from 5 to as much as 9 inches. I believe around 9 inches of rain was the highest total that was reported right here in kind of south central sections of Vermont. But certainly thoughts and prayers are with you folks. Damage, things like that can be repaired, but obviously we can't get life back. So I don't know the fatality count or anything like that. I think there's been a couple people that have lost their lives, but definitely hoping for the best for you folks, praying for you guys up here. So definitely keep me updated. A lot of people have messaged me, show me some footage, give me some updates. Keep that coming. I would like to know what's going on. And one of these days in the future, guys, I would love to put fundraisers together and then help you guys. But got some goals to meet, and I still can do that and look to do it in the future. Just got to get some things to come together here, and I think that is definitely going to be a goal for this channel. But anyways, you guys have a blessed night. I'll talk to you guys in the morning. Stay safe out there. God bless, and I'll talk to you again in the morning.